It may just be one region, but the state of Western Australia is simply huge. Welcome to Australia's very own Wild West. This is how it all began. The Australian dream, when gold rush fever in the late 19th century hit big time. Fact is, natural resources have been very kind to this part of the world. And on my journey, I'll be seeing how the Western Australian modern mining boom has made some people very rich, especially in the rapidly growing state capital, Perth. And how much money would this go for now?
$1.5 million rise in 7 weeks.
Before moving up to the north of Australia's biggest state to get a real taste of life in the outback. It's an incredible spectacle. I've never seen anything like this. And to cap it all, a close encounter with an Australian icon.
By the time your brain even registers it, he's already got you.
Kalgoorlie, one of the original Aussie gold rush towns. In the 1880s, it was buzzing with starry-eyed prospectors. Like this Irishman, Paddy Hannon, who struck gold and then proceeded to build up the town, which today still plays up to its Wild West image.
Okay, the general principle is a nice, steady, smooth action, left and right, keeping it as low to the ground as possible.
The prospector mentality hasn't disappeared entirely.
Okay.
We're ready to find gold.
Ready to find gold.
I'm ready to make my fortune. Mark has been in Kalgoorlie for 4 years, hunting for gold on a daily basis. I've got to say, the words needle and haystack come to my mind. I mean, do you really believe that you're going to find it at any moment?
That's the randomness of it. Yeah, you can find it at any moment.
75% of the country's gold can be found in Western Australia. Mark reckons they've only scratched the surface.
Recently I found a 3-ouncer and it was just like, you know, just pure adrenaline, excitement, you know. That particular piece was a $5,000 day.
Wow.
Last year they were pushing some ground not far from here, and one of the pieces that they pulled out of the ground was 23 kilos.
What? Which is worth how much?
Probably be close to $1 million, close to $1 million.
It used to be a gold mining free-for-all here, but today the landscape is dominated by this super pit, the biggest in Australia. 3.5 kilometres long and 1.5 wide, producing nearly 1 million ounces of gold a year. Of course, today it's not individual prospectors, but big corporations that are making billions out of precious metals here, fueling a very modern boomtown mentality. Travel 600 kilometres southwest of Kalgoorlie and you hit the state capital, Perth. This region boomed thanks largely to China's huge appetite for Aussie minerals like iron ore. Real estate prices trebled in the first decade of the millennium. And Perth claims to have the highest number of self-made millionaires per capita in the world.
Hello! Lovely to meet you. Mwah.
Including Sacha de Breton, property makeover queen and reality TV star.
Perth used to be quite a small little city. Now we've got big towers, lots more parks. There's a lot of opportunity for business and for corporates. You know, there's a lot of wealth coming in. There's a lot of international designers, clothing labels, things like that have opened up. Fantastic restaurants and clubs. This is a beautiful lounge area. So now it's got a fireplace, TV. This is all coppers.
Sacha specialises in fast home renovations for the mega rich.
This apartment has definitely gone from drab to fab fast.
And how much money would this go for now?
This has just been revalued at 4.5 million, $1.5 million rise in 7 weeks.
They like the high life here in Perth. Boutique hotels compete for the luxury market with huge resorts and casino complexes. But many locals feel priced out.
Has wealth changed the city?
Definitely. I think everything is getting more expensive where it was already quite expensive before, to be honest.
But you can, as a visitor, find affordable accommodation and food too, especially if you head out of the central business district. And of course, fine weather and the outdoors come for free. Along with Vancouver, Perth boasts the biggest inner-city park in the world.
One of the keys to understanding Perth is to realise that it is one of the, if not the, most isolated cities in the world. Closer, in fact, to Indonesia and Bali in the north than it is to its own Australian capital and the other big cities in the east.
More than 4 in 10 Perth residents were born outside Australia. 20 years ago, it was mostly from the UK.
3, 2, 1.
Now the fastest growing number are from Asia.
Onion and pickle, onion and
I like the Australian casual way and freestyle. You just do
Ivy first came from mainland China to Perth in order to study. That was 5 years ago, and now she's got a job in insurance, and she's here to stay.
What do you think is the reason why the China-Australia connection is getting so strong here in Western Australia?
money, the mining. So, you know, China is developing, big deal. So they need a lot of natural resources, and whatever they have, China needs it.
And are they buying property here? Have they got money?
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of people, they're buying the whole block, like 8 units, 6 units. They're just taking the money from China and buy things here.
When you're one of the fastest growing cities in the world, boasting about growth and development and construction, well, that's not enough. You want to showcase your culture too and be seen as an artistic capital. And that is exactly what Perth's doing right now.
Without fail, rats tails prevail. You're working for the government, you're going to jail. Put your house on the market, it's staying for sale.
Stormy started painting walls in the 1980s. Now it's de rigueur for any self-respecting new artist to adorn the city centre with their work.
Kick it in a place where time forgot. Rock a 2-pack shirt when you're tired of night. Only hard.
Big squirts. 10 you clean in the oven.
If Perth had a psyche, how would you describe that?
I think it's that of an adolescent teenager. I think it's trying to work out who it is, what it's about. And obviously with so many outside influences coming into the city, you know, there's so many people that are moving here or on a weekly basis that they're bringing influences from their where they've come from as well.
Hectic domestics out in the public view. Does it look like I'm talking to you?
And it's not just in the visual arts that Stormy feels Perth has developed.
It used to be the case that we missed out on a lot of travelling international acts because Perth was off the well-worn path, and if it was somebody was performing in Sydney to get the sound system and all their equipment, you know, it's 3 days drive across the Nullarbor. It was just cost prohibitive. Now they're making that effort, definitely, and we have places that can support it and do really well with, like Lady Gaga, you know, here maybe a month ago. That wouldn't have happened all that time ago.
Perth may still be a work in progress, but you can certainly get a clearer vision today of what it's going to become. So we leave the state capital behind and head to the vast plains of the Kimberley, more than 2,000 kilometres north. An area that in itself is bigger than most of the world's countries. This is the Texas of Australia, with a big cattle rearing tradition.
Here at Roebuck Plains Station, a huge farm in the rugged interior, a cattle mustering operation is about to get underway, and I am going to get a unique perspective.
Half of all Australia's live cattle exports come from this region. Time for me to catch up with the action.
Look at this! 2,000 bulls and cows being herded, mustered from one paddock across the road to another, where they're eventually going to be sold. This happens about 3 times a year. It's an incredible spectacle involving choppers, cars, bikes, but I've never seen anything like this.
This prime beef is bound for auction, then onto the coast and export to Indonesia. These 2 teenagers are already old hands. Jimmy, originally from the Northern Territory, followed in his father's footsteps and is already a qualified stockman.
Like, you got to read the cattle, and watch the way the cattle move. So if the cattle's running straight up towards you, if you want them to go back, then you got to go in and meet them halfway. That's telling them, this is my boundary, go that way.
Roebuck Plains has just been handed back to the local Indigenous people and has a training program for the young unemployed. TJ is one of the trainees.
Life out in Broome was actually pretty downhill. It was just being depressed every day, actually. To be honest, not doing anything, and it's not good, actually, yeah, so. And finding this job actually just got me back on my feet.
The transfer of the station back to the traditional owners of the land, the Yawuru community, is a groundbreaking deal in Australia. It wasn't easy, with intense, prolonged wrangling with the state government, but the deal helps to safeguard the preservation of culturally significant sites like this, Lake Ida.
It's about interconnection with the landscape. You can come out here and tell the traditional stories, and it's a good place to actually teach young Aboriginal men and women again that are troubled in town about the cultural significance within the landscape.
At the moment, Aboriginal-run tourism ventures only play a minor role in Australia's tourism industry. Now the hope is that projects like these will herald a change. Broome, founded in the 1880s as a pearling port, is the main resort town up here in the north. It's also the launch pad for exploring the rest of the Kimberley by air.
It's very, very harsh out here, so nothing can really survive.
But in this part of the world, the airplane is more than just a means to fly you to a holiday destination.
Presently 400 kilometres to the north of Broome, and really in the middle of nowhere.
Ralph is just 20 years old, but he's already been flying for 4 years.
We just passed a small little airstrip called Beverly Springs, a very, very remote community, and it's airstrips like that that are a real lifeline.
He spends his working week driving the aerial highway to tiny remote communities.
It's going to be bumpy, maybe a little bumps, but it shouldn't be too bad.
How was that, guys? Everyone's good?
This airstrip is along the famous 660-kilometre Gibbs River Road Trek, an iconic road trip for many a tourist, but largely deserted, which makes this outpost vital.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Welcome to Mount Barnett.
And this
is Charlotte.
Here at the Mount Barnett Roadhouse, the nearest town is 300 kilometres away.
And you've got pretty well everything here.
Yep, fresh fruit and veggies.
This couple run the place on behalf of the local indigenous community.
Some people would find this their version of hell. Do you like it?
We love it here, yeah. Initially we were told when we got here that we would sort of have a hard job on our hands, and it was. And we've just developed a rapport with the locals and that, and the tourists are great.
And here's the man with all the weekly supplies.
Anyone at the Roadhouse, just let you know the food truck's on the way. I'll be there in a minute or two.
This is his third stop on a marathon trek from Broome. He's got 8 tons of food in there, and then some.
Hi, Paul.
How you going today?
Good, mate.
You got a microwave delivered to you here?
Yeah, I think that's actually going to the shop for the locals.
A stack of televisions too.
TVs, yeah.
But the life of a delivery man around these parts is often about getting people out of sticky situations.
The guy who stopped on the side of the road to take a few photos didn't realise that his back wheel was over a culvert, and when he got out the car tipped up on its roof. He was stuck there for 4 days waiting for help.
And those most commonly in need of rescue? Tourists, who just don't take the right precautions.
Plan out their water, their food, get their vehicle ready to go. Don't come out here in a street car. Get a four-wheel drive, kit it out with the right gear on it.
Mobile phones? Do they work here?
Sorry.
They don't work here?
No.
And it's not just the perils of being isolated in the outback with no means of communication that can endanger the hapless traveller. In this part of the world, unprepared tourists can find themselves at the mercy of one of the region's great predators.
Crocodiles. They're not cute. They're not cuddly. But they are quintessentially Australian, and especially in this tropical part of the country. And it seems that Western Australians have a particularly complicated relationship with this incredible survivor.
Ever since they were deemed close to extinction in the 1970s, saltwater crocodiles have become a protected species. This sanctuary and research centre opened 30 years ago, and most of the animals here were rescued by rangers.
G'day, Brad.
Yep.
David, pleased to meet you. This is Chris, head crocodile keeper.
Hi.
A briefing chat before an unusual but very necessary relocation job.
We'll approach this other crocodile that we want to get. We're going to get a couple of ropes on him, and once we've got the ropes on him, we'll try and drag him up towards the front here where it's a bit easier to work on him. If it all starts to go pear-shaped, run.
This crocodile has been provoking a larger rival and needs to be removed for his own safety.
So what we might try and do before we drag him too far is, if we can, get a tape around the jaws, and that way, with the jaws contained, it makes the operation a whole lot safer. Do you want to come in and have a heave on the end of this too, Raj, if you don't mind? More the merrier. Heave. Keep pulling, keep pulling. That's it, down the laneway.
With a jaw pressure of 3,000 pounds per square inch, saltwater crocodiles are more dangerous than sharks.
That's good, perfect. You can stand on.
And attacks on people, though relatively rare, are on the increase.
Well, they'd have to be one of the most efficient hunters ever born on this earth. They're a real stealth predator, so they operate camouflaged. About 7 times faster than a human being is their reaction speed. So if you're right at the water's edge, you know, scooping up a bucket of water, and that crocodile comes out at you, by the time your brain even registers it, he's already got you.
That was incredible.
In here we have our hatchlings, our baby crocodiles.
But there's a strange paradox here, at least from my perspective, because there's also a captive crocodile breeding program here which raises income by culling and selling crocodile-related products.
The Australian saltwater crocodile skin is the most sought after skin out of all the species, because some of the species actually have small bony platelets in their belly skin, and it's the belly skin they're mainly after, which is that, it's okay, shh. It's that beautiful clean white belly skin, you know, very uniform scalation, that sort of thing. I'm sorry, here you go, you're right.
Yeah, does it ever seem strange to you that at one end of the chain you are protecting and rescuing crocodiles, and then at the other end they're actually being bred in order to be killed?
Yeah, there is a small conflict of interest internally myself. You know, I see the ones that we farm as being the commercial operation which allows us to continue as a park and to operate and save the animals out of the wild.
There is a stipulation that any crocodile caught in the wild is not allowed to be used for farming purposes.
Incredible. They're actually a very, very beautiful animal, and it's survived so long. You've got to give them credit.
So we've come to the end of my journey, and I've got to say the most striking thing about this place, apart from its sheer scale, is that the quality of life here is pretty well second to none. But then again, so are the prices. And I reckon that if you're not involved in the mining or construction business, then you've got to be rather careful with your money. And that advice probably goes to tourists too.
No, stay here. Oh, he's camera shy.
The pace of life here is so different to being in a busy metropolis, but that makes the people warm, hospitable, and very laid back. And in an increasingly frenetic and globalised world, that makes for a very refreshing change indeed.